Welcome back to Midnight Whispers. Don't forget to subscribe, turn off the lights, and let's step into something you can't unhear. My son always loved drawing, and his room was usually scattered with colored pencils and harmless little sketches that made me smile. But one Tuesday afternoon, I noticed something different lying on his floor. Something that didn't feel like it belonged in our home. I picked it up expecting another picture of a dog or a house. But instead, I found a face with empty, smooth spaces where the eyes should have been. Like someone had erased them with careful cruelty. I told myself kids draw weird things sometimes. Yet, when he came in and saw the page in my hand, he froze in a way I had never seen before, like I had touched something private and dangerous. I asked him gently why the face had no eyes, trying to keep my voice steady, and he looked down at his socks as if debating whether he should tell me the truth. Then he said, so casually it chilled me, "They don't have eyes when they come out of my room at night." And he said it like it was the most normal thing in the world. My stomach dropped, but I forced a smile, thinking maybe he had seen something on TV, or maybe he was just trying to scare me for fun. But he wasn't smiling, and the room felt strangely cold, as if the air had shifted and settled into something heavy. I crouched down and told him monsters aren't real, yet he only shrugged and said, "I didn't say they were monsters," in a tone too calm for a child. Later that night, while cleaning his room, I found more drawings tucked under his bed, as though he didn't want anyone to see them. Every picture showed the same thing: these pale faces with blank, smooth skin where eyes should have been. All of them leaning toward a small figure that looked frighteningly like him. The more I looked, the more I realized that each drawing seemed to come from a different angle of his room, almost like he was documenting something that moved around while he watched. I told myself I'd talk to him tomorrow, maybe take him to a therapist if needed, because kids don't say things like that without a reason. But that night, I barely slept, listening to every creak of the house, as if expecting something to move on the other side of his door. When I finally drifted off, I dreamed of the faceless drawings standing at the foot of my bed, not moving, just waiting. I woke before sunrise, shaken and sweating, unable to shake the feeling that something in this house had changed, and whatever it was had something to do with my son's art. The next morning, I tried to act normal, making breakfast and pretending I wasn't terrified. But my son kept glancing at the hallway like he expected someone else to join us. When I asked him if he slept well, he said, "Not really. They kept walking around." And he said it between bites of cereal, as though describing neighbors passing by. I tried to keep calm and asked him what he meant, but he just pointed toward his room without speaking, and something in his expression made me afraid to push further. After he left for school, I sat in his room with the door wide open, trying to convince myself I was being dramatic. But the silence seemed to pulse in my ears like a warning. I examined his drawings again and noticed something I hadn't seen before. Faint lines around the eyeless faces, almost like they were pressing against something invisible. I leaned closer and realized the lines looked eerily like cracks, the kind drywall makes when something pushes from the other side. I stood up so fast the paper fell from my hand, and I backed away until I was out of the room completely, suddenly needing space between myself and those drawings. I spent the rest of the day trying to distract myself, but my mind kept replaying his words, especially the way he said, "They kept walking," as if he could hear footsteps near his bed. When he got home, he seemed exhausted, eyes half open, dragging his backpack like it weighed too much. I asked if he was okay, and he just said he didn't want to talk about last night, like he had experienced something he didn't quite understand. That evening, he refused to go into his room alone, and when I asked why, he whispered that they don't like it when the lights are off. I checked the room myself, turning on every lamp, trying to look brave even though my hands shook as I touched the doorknob. But nothing was there, only the stillness of a child's room. And I told him everything was fine, even though I wasn't sure anymore. He slept in my bed that night, curling against me like he was much younger than he really was. And I kept my arms around him as if I could protect him from something I couldn't see. But even with him beside me, I felt watched, as though something was waiting patiently for us to fall asleep so it could move again. Around midnight, I heard a faint sound, like a soft scrape across the wood floor, and for a moment, I thought it was part of a dream, until the noise came again, closer. I held my breath and looked toward the bedroom door, half open, leading to the dim hallway where the sound seemed to be coming from. There was no movement, but something felt wrong, as if the air itself was holding its breath with me, stretching in silent anticipation. I didn't want to wake my son, didn't want to scare him more. So I slowly got up and walked toward the door, every step feeling like I was crossing into something forbidden. When I reached the hallway, the floor felt colder, and I stared at my son's room door at the end of the hall, slightly ajar, though I distinctly remembered closing it earlier. I whispered his name, just to reassure myself he was still in my bed, and he murmured in his sleep behind me, confirming that the open door wasn't his doing. I approached the door despite every instinct screaming not to, and with a shaking hand, I pushed it open. The room was quiet, but his pages were scattered across the floor again, as if someone had stepped through them, displacing them in uneven lines across the carpet. A breeze slid across my skin, even though the window was shut, and for a moment, I felt something like movement behind me, a soft sway of the air. I turned quickly, but the hallway was empty, just pale and long. But even then, I felt like someone had just slipped out of sight. I told myself I was being irrational, that fear can make the familiar feel dangerous, and I forced myself to pick up each drawing and place them on the desk. But when I reached the last page, my breath caught because this drawing wasn't like the others. Instead of a faceless figure, it was a woman with my hair, my clothes, my posture, drawn standing right in the doorway where I was currently standing. Except in the picture, something pale and tall stood behind me, leaning close, with no eyes and a mouth stretched too wide. My hands trembled, and I dropped the paper as if it burned, backing out of the room before something in that drawing could become real. I didn't sleep the rest of the night, sitting against my bedroom wall while my son breathed softly beside me. And every creak of the house felt like a warning, aimed directly at me. When morning finally came, the sunlight made everything look normal again. But normal didn't feel real anymore, not after what I saw. I made breakfast in silence, watching my son stir in his seat like he hadn't fully escaped whatever haunted his nights. He looked up from his bowl and said he didn't want to draw anymore, his voice flat in a way that didn't sound like him at all. I asked why, trying to keep my voice steady, and he said, "They do like when I draw them wrong." And the spoon slipped from his fingers. I froze, asking him what he meant by wrong. And he said they told him they look different now, that they're changing because they've been watching me lately instead. My blood ran cold, and I told him never to talk to them again. But he looked at me with tired eyes and said, "I don't talk to them. They talk to me." The rest of the day, I kept every light on, moving through the house like I was being followed, feeling the same cold draft slide past me at unpredictable moments. That evening, I found a new drawing on the kitchen table, one that wasn't there an hour earlier, showing our living room from a low angle. In the drawing, my son was sitting on the couch, and something tall and pale was standing right behind him, reaching down with long, thin fingers. I called his name in panic, running to the living room only to find him alone, curled up, watching cartoons with wide, nervous eyes. He saw the paper in my hand and whispered that he didn't draw it, and I believed him without hesitation because the lines didn't look like his anymore. I tore the page in half and threw it away. But even after I did, I felt something brush against the back of my neck, cold and patient. That night, as I held my son close, I felt the air shift again. And even without turning around, I knew we weren't alone in the room. And now, every time I walk past his doorway, I can't shake the feeling that something inside is waiting for us to turn off the lights again.